Want to know the latest in soccer? Then listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast. From MLS, the World Cup, and the Premier League, we've got you covered. The latest updates, the hottest matches, and news on the league's top players. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast.
David Beckham scores the goal to take England all the way to the World Cup finals.
Listen now.
Thank you for tuning into the GSMC Soccer Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Steven Melendez, and I'm going to be bringing you the latest and greatest in soccer news from around the world. Welcome back, everyone, to your favorite soccer podcast. I'm back, and I'm ready to talk about our favorite sport together. We had some exciting European football going on this week. We still got some exciting stuff going on today and throughout this week as well with the Europa League. We got more Champions League coming up. But, for our first match of Champions League football, technically it's the second match, but, our second match day, we got some exciting matches going on. And, we got, of course, the domestic leagues, well into their season now, or at least well into the early parts of their season. And then, of course, we just got to talk about more all-time greats. So let's just get straight into what we're going to be talking about in today's show. With the first part of the show, just going to be talking about some of the, exciting or all of the exciting matchups that happened throughout the Tuesday, matches in the Champions League. We had a lot of exciting matches going on between some marquee teams, and I certainly want to get into some of those. In the second part of the show, I'm going to be talking about the Europa League Match Day 2, just previewing some of the top games going on there. Of course, in the third part of the show, I'm going to be wrapping up my early impressions on the top 5 leagues with Ligue 1. Just talk about what's going on there, at least, to start the season. And then, of course, we're going to be ending my all-time top 10 series with strikers today in the last part of the show. So make sure you guys stick around for that one. But let's get right into the beginning of this show with the Champions League Match Day 2 matches on Tuesday. We had some really, really exciting ones, some disappointing ones as well, because, that it's just not the Champions League if we don't get some disappointments. But let's just get right into it with the early matches. We had Inter Milan versus Shakhtar Donetsk, and then, of course, we had Bayern Munich versus Locomotive Moscow. Now, for me, I thought that the Inter Milan versus Shakhtar Donetsk match was going to be the most exciting one. I'm sure everyone who was watching those was thinking the exact same thing, because those are two more, evenly matched teams. Inter Milan are obviously, in my opinion, have more quality and, just a better team overall. But, it's at least closer than Bayern Munich versus Locomotive. However, I ended up watching the wrong game, because it was the Bayern Munich Locomotive game that actually had the more goals and the more exciting finish with a 2-1 ending, while Inter Milan versus Shakhtar ended in a 0-0 draw. The worst finish in soccer, in my opinion. And it wasn't even that, competitive. Inter Milan early on put pressure on Shakhtar and caused a lot of problems for them. And they couldn't really get the same, at least for Shakhtar, they couldn't get the same amount of space that they were fighting against Real Madrid. With Real Madrid's defense, they were pressuring up on Shakhtar, but the thing is, they would be able to find those long balls and, find those really creative runs to really open things up in Real Madrid's defense. But in this one, Shakhtar just couldn't find that here. And usually that park the bus tactic that they do, where they literally plant all 10 of their players back and have 6 on the back line, usually would work, but it just wasn't as effective in this game against Inter Milan, as they were finding a lot of opportunities in their final third. They just in the end couldn't really, obviously with it being a 0-0 draw, Inter Milan just couldn't capitalize on those opportunities they got, and they certainly feel like they lost these points. Like for Shakhtar, they're obviously going to feel like, man, they escaped here and they got that, at least 1 point when it could have easily been 0. With Inter Milan, they certainly feel like they missed out on getting all 3 points in this game. I mean, Lukaku had a golden chance late in the first half with a 20-yard free kick. It hit the crossbar, but it looked like it was actually going in. And the goalkeeper from Shakhtar, Anatoly Trubin, the 19-year-old, made a really nice save to make it go, a little bit higher up than it was supposed to be. Because I feel like that might have hit the bottom of the crossbar and gone in. But yeah, it was just another missed opportunity for Inter. There was also another one like in the second half where Lautaro Martinez had a bunny off a rebound from a Brozovic shot, and he missed it wide left. And it was like, come on, that you got to make those opportunities in the Champions League. You're gonna have teams giving it their all, and if you have an opportunity, you got to take advantage of it, and they just didn't. Shakhtar, they did try to get Inter Milan on some of those counters because that's just how they play. They bring everybody back, and as soon as they find a mistake made by their opponent, they attack on it quickly and get those quick Brazilians like Taisong and Dodo, Tete. They get all those guys to move up and try to make those long counterattacks. They just didn't get them as efficient in this game as they did against Real Madrid, and that obviously showed on the score sheet. But I just felt like any chance Inter Milan would get would either go wide. I mean, the defense of Shakhtar was there at times, or like their final ball would just be off. Like whenever they were trying to get it in, it wouldn't reach their intended target, and they just couldn't do it. I felt like with Hakimi in this game, because he didn't play in the first game against Locomotive. No, it wasn't against Locomotive. Who was it against? Against Borussia Mönchengladbach. He didn't play against them. And I felt like with him going into the starting lineup here, he would obviously add more to the attack and would make them a lot more dangerous. But he just felt off in this game. I don't know whether if it was the time off that he had due to injury or whatever the case may be. But he just didn't have the same effect that he usually does in the attack. He was missing some easy passes. Maybe the pressure that Shakhtar were showing on defense, really rattled him a bit. But in the end, Inter Milan just couldn't get, that go-ahead goal, and it clearly showed, the frustration was building as the game was going on, and they just couldn't get anything going. So, it ended in a goalless draw, and I was very disappointed in that. And you can also look at it as another missed opportunity for Inter Milan, who drew the first game against Borussia, now draw this one against Shakhtar, and are now in, I guess they're in second place behind obviously Donetsk, Shakhtar with 4 points after they won against Real Madrid in their first match. So, just another missed opportunity for Inter Milan to really take advantage of this group and take a hold of it. Next, we had the more exciting game of the early matchups with Bayern Munich taking on Locomotive Moscow. And now entering this game, obviously, like I said before, we felt like Bayern were just going to blow Locomotive out of this match. But that just was not the case. I mean, Locomotive really showed that, they were here to, make Bayern Munich work. And Locomotive found some early chances. They just obviously weren't able to capitalize on them. And usually in past games, and especially in the Champions League, when teams do not take advantage of those opportunities that they get against Bayern Munich, it usually will, hurt them on the other side. But Bayern weren't able to get as many attacks, and weren't able to have a smooth, free-flowing offense that they usually do, because Locomotive's defense or defensive tactics were really messing with them. However, Bayern were able to eventually get on the score sheet within the 13th minute with a really, really well-timed team goal, which is what they usually do. It's no individual work. I mean, even though Lewandowski can do his thing, it's usually a team effort that gets them goals. And a very nice one-touch cross from Pavard found Goretzka open in the box, and he headed it into the goal. It was just a really nice goal. Like, just the touch that Pavard had on that pass, like, as it was coming to him off a really, off a solid cross. I forgot who passed it to him, but It was just a really nice one-touch cross from Pavard to find Goretzka in the box. And at this point, you're feeling that's it for Locomotive. I mean, they did well to start the game and not give Bayern Munich whatever they wanted, but they already opened up with a 1-0 lead early in the game. Just 13 minutes in, that's it. Bayern are just gonna go through this comfortably and just take over. But Locomotive were able to hold them off long enough to tie this game in the second half. There was actually even a penalty. I should mention this, that there was a penalty that should have been given to Bayern after a poor challenge from a Locomotive defender on Lewandowski, but VAR ruled it to not be a penalty. I don't know how, because it really looked like he clipped him in the on the leg and you can even see the Locomotive defender's leg kind of like swing as if it got hit with some contact. So I don't know how it wasn't called a penalty, but it was ruled not a penalty, and the game continued. But then Locomotive would eventually break through with a very solid run and pass by Zé Luis, finding Miranchuk in the box, who would then finish it for the equalizer in the 70th minute. And at this point, you're thinking, man, is this another Bayern Munich? Because they already had a 4-1 loss to Hoffenheim earlier this season. And, it kind of feels like they maybe take their foot off the gas pedal against, lower competition. But that would not be the case because, of course, the always consistent Joshua Kimmich would go on to spoil the night for Locomotive with an absolutely beautiful volley from outside the box to end the game, make it a 2-1 game, and they would go on to win this game. I mean, it was just so nice. Kimmich kind of lifted it up for himself, and then it was just one of those shots where it was just like it got passed to him, he plopped it up and then just nailed it one time into the back of the net. Super, super nice goal from Joshua Kimmich, one of my favorite players in the game today, and he just goes to show that he's always comes up with the big time plays, man, game in, game out. And just like that, Bayern Munich get their second win in as many games and take a hold of this group. Next, we get the Real Madrid versus Borussia Mönchengladbach game that ended in a 2-2 draw, but it did not feel like a 2-2 game. I mean, Borussia Mönchengladbach, even though Real Madrid started this game a lot better than they did against Shakhtar, they were getting more possession, and they didn't look as unorganized as they did against Shakhtar, weren't allowing Borussia to get as many, counterattacks and just whatever they wanted on the offensive end. But it still wasn't the same, as they just couldn't finish any of their early chances. It was still just 0-0 for most of that first half. But then, it eventually hurt them not finishing those chances, as Mönchengladbach would capitalize on a mistake by Real Madrid in the back and put together some very solid passing combinations to find Marcus Thurman in the box, and he just really nice finish in the 33rd minute to give Mönchengladbach a 1-0 lead. And I mean, when you think about the way Real Madrid started, it was certainly encouraging for fans, especially coming off that El Clásico win. It just felt like the momentum was all on Real Madrid's side. But then just like that, Borussia Mönchengladbach just showed that there are still holes in this team, and they go into the half down 1-0, and the nightmare continued in the second half, as in the 58th minute, Thuram would put in a rebound goal when Courtois couldn't hold on to the initial attempt, and Thuram was clearly onside, and this is one of the reasons why Real Madrid are having these early troubles in this season. And I know they're doing well in La Liga, but I mean, to have just 1 point in the first two matches of the Champions League, that is terrible, and especially when you haven't taken on the toughest club in your group. They haven't even taken on Inter Milan yet. This is the reason. Mendy had made an initial defensive play on the cross. Didn't even stop the cross, but then when he sees the ball going into the box, he kind of just doesn't even jog back. He walks back to the line, to the defensive line to try to make it the line. But and that is why Thuram was open, because he kept him onside. And if he would just hustle back and get back to the line and do what he's supposed to do, Thuram is clearly offside, and that's not a goal. But instead, they get hurt on that. And those are the little things that, I'm kind of seeing from Real Madrid that usually they would be more effective or would be more attentive to those details, but now it's just not the case. I don't know whether it's Zidane not being as, but I know Zidane's one of the better managers, so it can't be that. It just has to be the new players in this system, not because Mendy's one of the newer players, one of the younger players getting put into this Real Madrid system, and maybe it's just not, it's just not looking good. And it kind of felt like that was going to be all she wrote in this game. Another terrible loss by Real Madrid in this Champions League campaign, and looking at at one of their worst finishes in recent memory. However, the quality would start to show as first Benzema would get a bicycle kick to get them within one, and I'll tell you what, Varane, who I've been very critical of, got a very solid header. It was the ball was going out of bounds, but then he didn't give up on the play and got the header back into the box, and Benzema finished it with a very nice bicycle kick. Very solid play from him. And then lastly, Ramos was in the box and headed it to Casemiro, who was pretty much wide open right in front of goal, and he would put in the equalizer shortly after that. And that was pretty much that. And that last goal was in extra time, so it was pretty much with like no time remaining, and it just felt. I was actually watching the game with my girlfriend, like I did the first game. I was because her dad's a Real Madrid fan, and I kind of felt like the game was over. So I kind of got up. I was like, this isn't gonna happen. There's no way. And then I heard him like scream and was like just super excited that that they tied. And I was like, no way. But I mean, yeah, that's Real Madrid for you. I mean, they have the quality to beat almost anybody, but they need to be focused. They need to be on their game. And I guess being down got them back into being focused, but that just can't be the case. I mean, if they go up against Inter Milan and play this way, I don't feel like they'll win, even though Inter Milan's not playing that much better either. But just 1 point in their first 2 games in the Champions League, not a good start for Real Madrid. Next, we have Atletico Madrid versus Albe Salzburg, and Atletico were looking great in attack early. They just couldn't finish those chances that they got. And they almost got a goal of the tournament by João Felix as he attempted a bicycle kick in the box, but it hit the crossbar. I mean, the goalkeeper literally couldn't do anything. He was just there, like just standing. I mean, because that ball was hit with power, and I would have been out of my seat if that goal would have gone in, but it did not hit the crossbar and wouldn't go in. They would eventually break through though with a Marcus Llorente shot from outside the box. It was a very solid hit. I mean, it was like a rocket from outside. It was just along the ground, so it wasn't like one of those like in the air shots, but still, it was just it had just enough on it to get past the goalkeeper. Definitely a deserved lead for Atletico Madrid as they had chances, throughout that first half, and they even had chances to double the lead, but they just couldn't find the back of the net. It was a combination of solid goalkeeping, but also poor finishing. I mean, even Marcus Llorente had a chance to score his second goal, and it was just him and the goalkeeper, but he put it wide. So, they had chances to really grab a hold of this game. But then RB Salzburg, would eventually get their equalizer from the young Hungarian Dominik Szoboszlai, who rifled the ball into the back of the net, past Oblak, and honestly, it felt like Atletico Madrid had chances to disrupt Salzburg's attack in this one, but they just couldn't get a solid connection on the ball, and it would eventually hurt them, and they go into halftime tied 1-1, and the start of the second half was a nightmare for Atletico Madrid as Salzburg would take the lead just 2 minutes after the break with an excellent breakaway that found Omar wide open on the left flank, and then a really nice cross from him find Berisha open at the back post, and he got just enough on it to get it into the goal. And honestly, I know it's hard to be critical of Jan Oblak. I mean, he's one of the best goalkeepers in the world, but with that title, he should have probably stopped that cross. I mean, I feel like he kind of hesitated on it, and then when he went for it, he was already too late, and it left the goal wide open. So I kind of feel like that's on him, but at the same time, his defense needs to back him up there. They can't just leave, guys wide open like that, in the Champions League. Just can't happen. However, shortly after that, Atletico would get their equalizer with a very strong team goal. It was started by Luis Suarez. He passed it to João Felix, who found Correa, who then split 2 defenders into the box, and then he would pass it to Felix for the tap-in. Just a very beautifully set up team goal to get them the equalizer. And then Salzburg had chances at a shot on goal. Like, it was very, very close. But Severovic, what a sliding tackle to disrupt that play. It felt like it was going to be a goal. I mean, obviously John Oblak had a chance to stop that, but at the same time, it just felt like that was going to be a goal. And Severovic slid in there and just stopped that attack and prevented them from getting their third goal. And then Atletico would eventually get their winner late in the game with a very nice goal from Felix. I mean, the touch on that finish was beautiful. Hit the post as it went in, and just a huge game from João Felix. I mean, that's why they paid what they paid for him. They're finally using him the right way, and he's rewarding them. So they go through with a huge 3-2 victory after being down 2-1, and definitely well deserved. Next, we have Atalanta versus Ajax, and this is the game I was super excited to watch, and it didn't disappoint, even though Ajax were looking much more, dominant than I thought they would. I mean, I feel like Atalanta don't have the best defense, but, you still got Palomino back there. I mean, it's not like, they have terrible quality, but their defense has shown throughout this early parts of the season to be their biggest weakness. And it was also their biggest weakness last season, but their offense always seems to, score enough goals to make that a moot point. But this time at least early on, Ajax were getting whatever they wanted. They got 2 early goals, and it kind of felt like, this was going to be, a runaway game for Ajax, but the second half couldn't come soon enough for Atalanta, and they turned it around. I mean, Atalanta got chances that they wanted in the second half, and Duvan Zapata put them on their back with 2 very, very solidly taken goals early on in that second, pretty much like throughout the second half. But when he was the second goal that he got, he had the most space he had gotten literally all game, and he did not let that chance go to waste. He put it into the back of the net with a rifle of a shot. I mean, it was very well taken. And they needed to take advantage of that because pretty much Ajax were dominating this game from start to finish. But, Papu Gomez, Duvan Zapata, they took care of business and got the 2-2 draw. Next, let's talk very quickly about the shutout games that happened. We had Liverpool versus Midtjylland. I have to give a lot of credit to Midtjylland in this game. They, you go into this game after losing to Atalanta 4-0 in the first game. You're thinking, I mean, Liverpool, even though they're dealing with a bunch of injuries, you feel like Liverpool's going to take care of business and just run away with this game. And that just wasn't the case. Midtjylland made them feel them on the defensive end, a lot, and the effort was certainly there. And I got to give credit to Midtjylland where credit's due. They go into halftime 0-0, and it felt like, it was anyone's game, even though Midtjylland just didn't have the quality in attack. They made a few substitutions to add more creativity to but at that point the game was already over. Alexander-Arnold was the player of the game in my opinion, just him being able to create so many things for Liverpool and finding Diego Jota for that opening goal and finding Salah towards the end of the game to get him open and he ended up getting fouled and getting the penalty and eventually making the game 2-0. But man, Liverpool get another injury scare with Fabinho leaving early in this game, and you got to wonder how many more injuries can this team overcome? I mean, because this game was against Midtjylland, but when you're talking about, when they're going to their domestic league and the Premier League, it's going to be very difficult for them to, make up all these injuries. And yes, they did get Ali Song back, and that certainly is going to help their defense, but they need to find a way to, overcome those injuries. But yeah, they do get a 2-0 win. Very, very solid start for them. Manchester City absolutely dominated Marseille. I mean, Marseille only had 2 shots this entire game, and Manchester City were pretty much just toying with them. They did go into the half up 1-0, but they did get their 2 scores pretty much in succession late in the second half. One from Ilkay Gundogan and another from Sterling when the game was pretty much over. But Marseille were just out of rhythm, and I expected much more from them coming in. I mean, maybe I'm a fan of the French club. I'm a PSG fan, so I'm always rooting for French teams, but I just expected more from them. But they have just looked so sloppy to start this Champions League campaign, and they certainly deserve this 3-0 loss. But a big-time win for Manchester City, and they get 2 wins in 2 matches. And then lastly, we got Porto versus Olympiacos, and this was 2 teams that had a chance to, big opportunities in this game. I mean, Olympiacos, after winning their first game against Marseille, coming here to try to take a big hold of that second place, while Porto trying to get back in here with after losing to Man City in the first game. They come in here and outplay Olympiacos from start to finish. Even though Olympiacos got a few more opportunities and kind of looked like they had more possession throughout the game, Porto just took advantage of those opportunities that they received and ultimately ran away with this game with a 2-0 victory. So that's going to wrap it up for this segment. Make sure you guys stick around, because when I come back, I'm going to be previewing some of the matches from the Europa League match day 2 coming up on Thursday.
Are you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? The GSMC College Football Podcast is your ticket to all things college football. Join us as we talk college football, from the national championship, the college rivalries, the bowl game, to the Heisman Trophy. To which conference is the best? We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, the Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between. Download the GSMC College Football Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Welcome back, everyone. If you missed the last segment, I went over all of the Champions League matches that happened on the Tuesday games, and now we're going to be talking about the Europa League match day 2 games. Just going over some of the matches going on throughout the day, and just previewing the games, just seeing what key players are on each side, some of the injuries going on, and of course the game predictions. So let's just get this started with Celtic versus Lille. This is the first time these two clubs face off against each other, and Lille are actually one of the few remaining teams in Europe to remain unbeaten in all competitions in 2020-21. And Lille continued that momentum to start their Europa League campaign with a 4-1 drubbing over Sparta Prague. And Celtic, on the other hand, actually started theirs with a 3-1 loss to AC Milan. But that, you can't really blame them for that. AC Milan are one of the better teams in this competition right now. But you look at Celtic and their key players. You got Odsonne Edouard, defender Shane Duffy, attacking midfielder Ryan Christie, and of course Mohamed El Younossi. You got some solid players there that create an attack, and of course the leadership in Shane Duffy in defense. In the injuries, you have some pretty significant ones with James Forrest and Christopher Jullien, and he hasn't been listed on the injury list, but he didn't play in their last game due to a back injury. But goalkeeper Vasilis Barkas, he is a big-time player for them as well. It was the big-time signing for them this summer, or I guess you could say this winter. So if he's not playing, that's certainly going to hurt them as well. But yeah, they are missing a few key players in that lineup. And then when you go and look at Lille, their key players, they have the trio of Jonathans and Jonathan Ikong, Jonathan David, and Jonathan Bamba, all helping out in attack. And then you have the always consistent leader and defender Jose Fonte there in defense. And injuries, they actually do not have any key injuries to speak of right at the moment. So they're looking really good, and they have all the momentum heading into this game. So I see Lille coming through with a very dominant 3-1 victory over Celtic and taking a hold of this of their group. Next, we have AC Milan versus Sparta Prague, and AC Milan defeated Celtic, like I said, in their first Europa group stage match 3-1, and are one of the other teams that has yet to be beaten this season. They did, however, just finish they did drop points for the first time this entire season in this past weekend with a 3-3 draw against Roma. It was a little controversial, and AC Milan probably should have gone away with the victory there, but yes, they did drop a few points there. Sparta Prague, on the other hand, has started off their domestic league with 6 straight victories. However, the competition in the Europa League is obviously a different level, and they lost that first game against Lille 4-1, so a little coming back to earth there for them. For AC Milan, they do have a few key players that will be playing in this game, but of course they will be putting in a few of their second teamers because of the level of competition that they'll be playing. But I wouldn't be surprised if you see Salatan Ibrahimovic in the lineup. Of course, captain Alessio Romagnoli, and the best left back in Serie A, Theo Hernandez. All three will play a big part in this game and will surely help AC Milan continue their strong run in the Europa League. They are dealing with a few injuries. Ante Rebic, he's been injured with an elbow injury. However, they did get some recent positive COVID tests. One to their number one shot stopper, Gianluigi Donnarumma. They also got the new signing, Jens Peter Haj, and Matteo Gabbia, their defender. All three have been tested positive for COVID, so they will not be able to play in this match. And it's really not that big of an issue. I mean, obviously, not the whole fact that they got COVID, but missing out on those 3 players for this game in particular won't really hurt. Of course, if they start missing Serie A matches, that's a whole different story. But for this game against Sparta Prague, I don't think it'll really hurt them that much. And for Sparta, you look at some of their key players. They do have Borek, Dokal, Adam, the youngster Adam Losek, and of course Lucas Julis, who have all kind of helped with the attack, bring that creativity to this side. They are, however, dealing with a lot of injuries and suspensions in their defense. They're missing 4 center backs in Lucas Stettin, David Hanko, Andrzej Selutska, and Dominik Plechati. All 4 center backs are all out with injuries. That is certainly hurting them. They even had to rely on defensive midfielder Ladislav Kresh, the second, to go back and play center back, but he actually picked up a red card in that Lille match in the first Europa League group stage match, and he will not be able to play in this game either. So they are down 5 defenders going into this game, and that is certainly not going to help them, and I feel like that allows AC Milan to win this game easily 2-0, possibly even 3-0. I do not see any chance Sparta Prague can really put up any sort of fight against AC Milan, who are one of the hotter teams in Europe right now. Next, we have this premier matchup between Napoli and Real Sociedad. Real Sociedad started their Europa League campaign with a 1-0 win over Rijeka and are also first in La Liga at the moment, so they're enjoying a very strong start to their 2020-21 season. Napoli, on the other hand, started Europa League with a 1-0 upset loss to AZ Alkmaar, and they had all of their players. I mean, you said Victor Osimhen was playing, Mertens was playing, even Koulibaly was playing, so there's no reason they should have lost that game. However, they have looked good in the early parts of the Serie A season with 4 wins in their first 5 matches. You look at some of the key players for Real Sociedad, and of course you got David Silva, their new signing, who has added a whole new level of creativity into that midfield. And then, of course, the forward duos of Mikel Merino and Mikel Oyarzabal. Those two are obviously, the main attacking duo for this team, and certainly will be very important in their Europa League success. Some key injuries, they are going to be missing out on captain Asier Iarramendi, the midfielder, former Real Madrid midfielder. He's certainly going to be missed, especially against this game against Napoli. His composure in the midfield and defensive work rate will certainly be missed against a dynamic attack of Napoli. And talking about that dynamic attack, you have guys like Dries Mertens, Victor Osimhen, Hirving Lozano, and of course the captain Lorenzo Insigne. All four are going to be extremely important in this game. Maybe they don't play all of them, trying to, cycle in some new players. But a game against Real Sociedad, one of the better teams in their group, or the best team in their group, and having lost the first match, I do expect them to probably go all out in this one. They will be without Fernando Llorente, Kevin Malcuit, and Arkadiusz Milic, because they are all ineligible to play in the Europa League. But however, I do still see this game ending in a 2-2 draw between these two clubs. If anything, I could see Napoli squeezing out a win here, but more likely than not, I see this ending in a draw between these two very even teams. Next, we have Bayer Leverkusen versus Slavia Praha. Bayer Leverkusen started their Europa League campaign with a 6-2 drubbing over Nice, just absolutely dominating them in that competition. And they have started pretty well in their domestic league as well, with being in the top four, just behind RB Leipzig, Bayern Munich, and Borussia Dortmund, which I kind of expected. And for Slavia Praha, they have started their Europa League campaign with a 3-1 loss to Beersheva, so not a very strong start for them. For Bayer Leverkusen, you look at some of their key players, they do rely on some youth, but they all, like Leon Bailey and Moussa Diaby, but they also have that veteran leadership in Karim Belarabi, and of course captain Charles Aranguiz. Now, they will be missing a few key players in left winger Paulinho to a ligament rupture, and of course center forward Patrick Schick to a torn muscle. But I do not believe it's going to really hurt them in this game. I feel like Bayer Leverkusen have so much more quality than Slavia Praha. I just don't see any way that Slavia Praha really puts up a decent fight against Bayer Leverkusen, and I feel Bayer Leverkusen run away with this game 3-0 and, just continue their dominance over this group, and that's just where this one ends. Next, we have Tottenham versus Royal Antwerp. Both teams won their opening matches in the Europa League and are tied at the top of Group J. They are both also heading into this matchup unbeaten in their last 7 games. So this is definitely going to be an interesting clash to watch. Spurs have been unable to win a game when facing off against Belgian opponents, but with their form the way it is, that is likely to change. You look at some of the key players for Tottenham, and of course you got probably the best duo so far this season in Harry Kane and Heung-min Son. Of course, the goalkeeper Hugo Lloris, and the brand new signings of Gareth Bale and Sergio Reguilon. Now, with Tottenham, having a lot of Premier League games in between, and this not really being that, crazy of a Europa League matchup, I would not be surprised if you see a lot of these guys on the bench and Mourinho, switching in a couple of their second teamers. But I still don't think it'll make a big time difference because I feel like Tottenham have so much more quality than Antwerp. But you look at some of the key players they have. You got Dio Mercy Mbokani, left back Jordan Lukaku, and Abdoulaye Seck. Both of those guys coming back from COVID positive tests, which is very, very good for Antwerp. But I just don't think it'll be enough for them because they got 2 more positive tests after that with Dylan Batub Sika and Manuel Benson both getting positive tests for COVID. However, I do still think, especially with Antwerp having, some solid coming into this game in good form, I do think they will give Tottenham a bit of a fight and surprise some people here, but I still think Tottenham will win. But I think it'll be a narrow victory. I think it'll be 2-1, maybe 3-2 victory for Tottenham. Sorry, guys, I'm getting a little sick. Trust me, it is not the Rona, but yes, I am getting a little sick. I feel freaking nose getting all stuffy, annoying as heck. But next we have Leicester City versus Aek Athens. Leicester City enter this match with a dominant 3-0 win against Zorya Luhansk, and Aek Athens, on the other hand, suffered a 3-0 defeat against Braga. Leicester City haven't had much success on the road in European competitions as of late, but the same thing could be said for Aek Athens at home in European competitions, as they have gone winless in their last 12 home matches in major European competitions. For Leicester City, they are dealing with a few key injuries. I've said this at pretty much any time I'm talking about Leicester City, because it is some big-time injuries with right back Ricardo Pereira dealing with a ligament rupture from pretty much the end of last season, and then defensive midfielder Wilfred Ndidi also dealing with a muscle tear. Both those injuries are keeping those guys out for the foreseeable future, and they are very key pieces of this team. So Leicester City have not been at full strength for some time now, but they still have key players: Jamie Vardy, James Maddison, Kasper Schmeichel, and of course Yuri Tillemans. I feel like all four of those players will play huge roles, but since it's not really that big of a game, and I feel like I don't know why I go Aek Athens is certainly not a high quality side. I feel like Leicester City is going to give these players time to rest, and they're going to cycle in their second team players. This just feels like the type of game where they do that. But then you look at some of the key players for Athens, and they got attacking midfielder Petros Mantalos and center forward Marco Livaja. They are dealing with a few injuries in Damian Zimanski and Levi Garcia, two guys that definitely have a big amount of influence on this team, and without them in the squad, I do not see any way that Athens really puts any sort of pressure on Leicester City. So I see them easily winning this game 3-0. Next, we have Arsenal versus Dundalk. Arsenal started their Europa League campaign with a narrow 2-1 win over Rapid Wien. Not very convincing from them, as they were actually down in this game 1-0 and had to get two late goals from David Luiz and Aubameyang to get the victory. And for Dundalk, they started theirs with a 2-1 loss to Molde. A solid showing, but obviously still losing to Molde isn't the result they're looking for. And while Arsenal have never faced an Ireland club in their UEFA history, Dundalk have never managed to defeat an English team, losing to Liverpool and Tottenham back in the 80s. Arsenal is coming off a 1-0 loss to Leicester City this past weekend and will be looking to turn things around in the Europa League, while Dundalk are coming off a domestic loss to Waterford this past weekend. For Arsenal, of course, their key players, you got Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, Willian, Bukayo Saka, and Thomas Partey, although you probably won't see some of these players in this matchup, considering, it all depends. I doubt you'll see Aubameyang, I doubt you'll see Willian. You'll probably see guys like Pepe and Nketiah really getting the starts here, because Dundalk is not really a threat to Arsenal with the amount of quality that they have. However, they are dealing with a lot of injuries, and not having guys like David Luiz, Rob Holding, Pablo Mari is all going to hurt. And then the fact that they didn't add Socrates to their Europa League squad is certainly going to hurt them as well, because they do not have the depth now to really deal with that kind of injury. But for Dundalk, A couple of the key players they have is Brian Gartland, their captain. You got Patrick Hoban, who has started the season off extremely well, goals, scoring pretty much every game. And then you got Michael Duffy as well. They do not have any key injuries, but I do see Arsenal winning this game, not with ease though, because they are going to be using a lot of their younger players, and I feel like that's going to end up hurting them in the end. But they still squeak through with another 2-1 victory over Dundalk. Just a classic Arsenal, squeeze. Next, you got Roma versus Cska Sophia. And Roma entered this match after a solid 2-1 victory over the Young Boys and a 3-3 draw against AC Milan this past Monday. So they certainly have a lot of momentum heading into this game. Cska Sophia, on the other hand, opened their Europa League campaign with a 2-0 loss to CFR Cluj and followed that up with a 1-1 draw in their domestic league. And that actually made them fire their manager after poor results in the domestic league. They have 6 draws in 10 matches, and certainly that doesn't bode well for them because they're obviously going to be, very unorganized, and that is that Roma's going to pounce all over that. And on top of that, Roma have a very solid record against Bulgarian teams in UEFA competitions with 5 wins in 6 games. And some of the key players for Roma that I feel are going to be playing, you got Paul Lopez, of course, the goalkeeper, the number one keeper for them. You got Lorenzo Pellegrini and Pedro. They are dealing with a lot of injuries, though, with, of course, Nicola Zaniolo, Carlos Perez has tonsillitis recently. Javier Pastore is not in the Europa League squad. You got Gianluca Mancini out because of a suspension, because of a red card. And then you got Amadou Diawara and Riccardo Calafiori out with COVID positive tests. So they are dealing with a few injuries, but Roma just have so much quality on their side. They can bring in their whole second team, and it'll probably still defeat Cska Sophia. They have a couple decent players in Ionesi Sancher and Alice Sowet, but I just don't see them really posing any kind of threat to Roma, and I see Roma winning easily 3-1. So that's going to wrap it up for this segment. Make sure you guys stick around because when I come back, I'm going to be talking about the league early impressions, just how each team has done so far in this season.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back, everyone. If you missed the last segment, I went over some of the Europa League matchups coming up later this week. Just previewed some of the games and just what my thoughts on what the final outcome will be for those games. And now we're going to be talking about Ligue 1 and just my early impressions on the season so far. For a lot of these teams, they're about 8 matches in. For some, they're 7 games in. And I just want to talk about which teams have impressed and just go through the standings and just see where each team is at. So to start off, we're going to be talking about PSG, who are at number 1, and of course they lost that game against Manchester United in their first Champions League game. They do have a game against Istanbul Başakşehir coming up, later today, or maybe if it's already happened. You guys saw the outcome of that game. But in Ligue 1, PSG did not start off very well. They lost 2 very winnable games. I mean, in Ligue 1, pretty much every game is winnable for PSG. But they lost a game to Lens, which is very unexpected for them, and against Marseille in that game where there was a lot of red cards late in that game, and it was just a mess. But PSG have been very undisciplined for a lot of this, for the start of this season. I mean, they did beat Metz. They beat Nice 3-0. They destroyed Angers 6-1. Nimes 4-0. So since those early losses, they've certainly gotten their rhythm back and have won the games after that. And they're obviously the most dominant team in Ligue 1. I mean, 20 goals scored, only 3 allowed for a plus 17 goal differential to start this season. Obviously looking very, very strong. But those early losses certainly don't look good for them. And, it's just, it kind of makes me feel like, as a PSG fan, like it's a spell of things to come. Because, for them not to have the type of, maybe it could have been, a hangover from being in the Champions League final. I mean, that's always possible. But, whenever they get those early losses, especially in Ligue 1, that was the worst start that they've had in a long time. I talked about it, and I was wondering what was going on with PSG. I knew they would eventually get it together, and they've won every other game other than those 2. So I'm not, really that worried. But still, it's not the kind of start you would expect from PSG in Ligue 1. Next, we have Lille, who I've already talked about in the last segment, who are one of the better teams to start the season. They have yet to lose a game in this 2020-21 campaign, and that goes with 5 wins, 3 draws, no losses to start the season. They've scored 14 goals and have allowed 3. They had some pretty strong games. They defeated Lens 4-0, who are one of the surprises of the year so far. They beat Nantes 2-0, Strasbourg 3-0. And really a lot of these games, they did have a draw against Marseille 1-1. So they did have some games that that they kind of dropped some points. Like they drew a game against Rennes, who was but also that's they're a really strong team. There were a couple red cards in that game as well. So that could have gone either way. But then they also drew against, what was the other draw that they had? They drew against Nice recently this past weekend. So. And Nice actually scored first in that game, and then eventually Lille came through. But really just not to lose yet so far in their first 8 matches. That's certainly a big-time accomplishment for them, and hopefully they're able to continue that, because I want some competition for PSG in Ligue 1. Right now they're tied with 18 points each, with the fact that PSG have lost those first 2 games. But I just don't feel like Lille's going to have enough quality to really keep up with PSG in the standings. Obviously, the start of the season is really good for them, but eventually once they, start having a lot of these Champions League games, or not Champions League, I mean Europa League games kind of intertwined with some of the Ligue 1 games, I feel like that's really going to, hurt their, shot in the standings. Next, we have Rennes, who once again show that they're not a fluke. They are really good, and obviously it helps to have one of the best youngsters in the entire world in Camavinga on your team. But the defense has not looked as good as I expected them to be. They have allowed 10 goals, even though they've scored 16, which is second best in the league. And they have 4 wins, 3 draws, and 1 loss to go with 15 points. Oh, almost sneezed there. Probably sneeze is coming soon, guys. But, you got Edouard Camavinga, you have Mbaye Niang, Rafinha, Guirassy, Jeremy Doku, Daniel Rugani, who they just recently got from Juventus. So I feel like they have a lot of great quality on their side, and I don't feel like they're a fluke. I feel like they're certainly a big-time team. The only thing is that once eventually Rennes sells Camavinga, which I hope it's not during the January transfer. I hope it's certainly maybe in the summer, or maybe even a year from, later, 2 years from now or something, because he's, there it is. I felt it coming. But, you know, maybe 2 years from now when he's like 18 or 19, like, because I feel like he's still so young. He still needs time to develop. And yes, I know they call it a farmers league, and that's the perfect example of it. But you got to really appreciate what Rennes have been able to do so far this season, defeating the team that they're supposed to. I mean, they got a 2-1 win over Monaco, a 3-0 win over Saint Etienne. They beat Lorient. They did drop points against Reims, who, last season they looked great, obviously, but just haven't been able to, do it so far this season, which we'll get into later. Dropped some points against Dijon, which didn't look good, but overall, got to be impressed with what Rennes have been able to do so far this season. Next, we have Marseille at number 4. Same record as Rennes with 4 wins, 3 draws, and 1 loss. However, they have not been as dynamic in the attack, which is surprising to say. They've only scored 11 goals, but they have allowed just 8 for a +3 goal differential and 15 points. In their matches, they did beat Bordeaux. They did get a draw against Metz, a draw against Lille, and against Marseille. So they did drop a few points there. But again, those are some teams that are pretty much at even with them, and for some people would say are better than them. So those are some good points to at least get. They did, however, pick up 3 points against PSG in that 1-0 win in the Le Classique, and it was a big time win for them. I mean, I was disappointed in that PSG performance, but you gotta tip your hat to Marseille, the way they were able to perform there. Obviously, there was a bunch of red cards at the end of that game, so it kind of overshadows, the good game that Marseille had. But in the end, those 3 points certainly helps them, get to those 15 points. And doesn't drop them like just before the top 10. They're still in the top 4. And I do expect them to be here for most of the team. I actually expect this top 4 to be like this for a lot of the season. Even though like I did say, Lille could drop back a bit. I do expect, these 4, Lille, Rennes, obviously PSG, and Marseille, to be here for most of the season. Next, at number 5, we have Nice, who have had some trouble defending so far this season. I mean, they have allowed 10 goals, but they have only scored 11 goals, so which is a +1 goal differential for 14 points with 4 wins, 2 draws, 2 losses, and a couple of those losses, they lost to PSG 3-0. Obviously, that's not what you want. They did lose to Montpellier, who, oh boy, I sound like I'm getting sick. That is not good. And then of course a loss to Monaco, although that was a club friendly. My apologies. But they did beat Strasbourg, they beat Lens, they drew against Bordeaux, they got the wins against Saint Etienne, Nantes. They got wins that they needed to get. And they also defeated, what's it called? They also defeated, what was this other team that they defeated? It was a recent draw against Lille. So, they've gotten some of the results that they wanted, but also some results that they probably could have expected more from, especially that 3-0 win against, or loss against PSG. That was at the time when PSG were struggling, and a lot of people were wondering, like, what's going on with PSG. That was the game where PSG was like, we're fine, we're everything's good, and Nice just were not able to do anything against them. So obviously that hurts them, and they're at 5th and just outside that European spot. Of course, it's just the start of the season. They're just 1 point behind 3rd place. So there's definitely plenty of games to play. But yes, right now they're at number 5. Next, we have at 6 Lyon, who I expected to be one of the better teams this season, even though, especially after what they did in the Champions League last year, and the fact they were able to hold onto their top 3 attackers in Memphis Depay, Houssem Aouar, and Moussa Dembele. But they have just not been able to, really capitalize on this early, start, like, especially with PSG losing 2 games, like, you got to capitalize on that. But they lose to Montpellier, they drew to Nimes, they got a draw against Bordeaux as well, and you just need to see more from them. I mean, that's just not going to cut it. A draw against Lorient, one of the worst teams in Ligue 1, that's not going to cut it. Those are some bad dropped points. But they've allowed 8 goals. They've scored 14 for a +6, which is pretty solid. But still, it's more like the missed opportunities. Those draws, 4 draws in 8 matches. That's just not going to cut it in really challenging PSG. And they're already 5 points behind them and Lille for one of those top 2 spots. So next we have the surprise so far this season with still a game in hand. They're in 7th place. They got 4 wins, 1 draw, and 2 losses. They've scored 10, allowed 10 for a 0 goal differential, but they do have 13 points, and they've gotten some solid play. They have lost. They did lose their most recent game against Lille, but they did have 2 red cards in that game. So obviously that they kind of they kind of hurt themselves there. But they did get a win against Bordeaux. They beat Saint Etienne. They beat PSG. I already talked about that. Was a huge win for them. They did lose to Nice early in the season, but they've taken care of the teams they had to. Even though they did get a draw against Nimes. They did beat Lorient and, like I said, beat PSG, which no one expected them to, and beat Bordeaux, beat Saint Etienne, like I've already said, and those are some big-time wins for them. So big-time props to Lens and a huge-time start for their 2020-21 campaign. Next, we have Angers, who also have 4 wins, 1 draw, but they have 3 losses instead of 2 for Lens, so they are behind them. They have allowed 16 goals so far this season, which is one of the worst in the league, so they have to shore that up, a big part of that has to do with the 6-1 loss they had to PSG, but they also lost 4-1 to Montpellier, which is just unacceptable. I mean, Montpellier scored 13 goals so far this season, but still, you got to see more from Angers, and they did recently defeat Rennes 2-1. They've gotten some results. They've got 2 wins in the last 3 games. The win against Rennes, the win against Nantes, and a tie against Metz. They beat Brest. They did beat Reims. So they've beaten some teams that they've had to beat, but they have dropped some points. They dropped points to Bordeaux, losing 2-0 to them, and you just need to see more from Angers. I mean, I remember when they first recently got promoted, and they were a very high energy club, and maybe that energy is kind of getting transmitted the wrong way because, I mean, allowing 16 goals, that is not a great way to start the season. But yeah, still in 8th place, strong start for them. Bordeaux are in 9th place, 3 wins, 3 draws, and 2 losses. They have one of the best defenses in the league, and this is what I've been expecting from Bordeaux. Even though they haven't been like this over the past couple seasons, they've allowed just 5 goals in 8 games. They have also only scored 9, so it's not looking as good in the attack. But as of late, they beat Nimes, they beat Dijon, putting shutouts in both games. They did also have a goalless draw against Nice. They did lose against Marseille 3-1 and lost against Lens 2-1. But they also got a draw against Lyon, which is a solid result, and they also got a 2-0 victory over Angers. So they certainly know how to shut out their opponents. I mean, they have, what is that? I mean, I believe that's like 5 clean sheets already in this season. Let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, 5 clean sheets so far this season. Is that third? 6 clean sheets so far this season. So, very strong performances from Bordeaux so far this season. They just need that offense to pick up just a bit. Same thing goes for Metz. I mean, they've allowed 7 goals in 8 matches, but they've scored only 9 as well. They got a draw against Angers. They got a draw against Marseille. Those are some good results. And they did beat Saint Etienne and Lorient. So they have gotten, and even Reims. So they've gotten some very strong results early on. Even a 1-0 loss to PSG isn't really that bad. They did start the season with 2 straight losses, 1 to Monaco and 1 to Lille. But since then have really performed well. And they are one of the hotter teams in the season, to be honest. Next, we have Montpellier at 11. 13 goals scored, 13 allowed for a 0 goal differential. They've got 3 wins, 2 draws, and 3 losses. You look at their team, they got some solid players, Vitorino Hilton, Andy Delort, Jonas Omlin. But really, the team just needs to perform a bit better. It's just too inconsistent. You look at their games, I mean, they recently lost to Reims 4-0. That is not a good result, but then they drew against Monaco, and then another loss to Nimes. Those are two losses there that you just cannot have, especially after they started the season as well as they did with a win against Nice, a win against Lyon, a win against Angers. They did lose to Rennes early in the season, but there were a few red cards in that game, especially early on for Montpellier. But man, it just kind of sucks to see the way they have, I guess not finished, but the way they've been as of late after starting the season so well. So they need to find some sort of consistency and play the way they did early on this season. Next, you have Monaco, who, just continue to not find any sort of the same thing but Monaco are expected to do so much better. They got Wissam Ben Yedder, they got Fabregas, Kevin Voland, Alexander Golovin, Gelson Martins. They got a lot of Youssouf Fofana, Camille Glick. It goes on and on. Chadley for the Belgian midfielder. They got so much quality on their side. I just don't understand why they can't find any sort of consistency. They've scored 11 goals, but have allowed 13. And you look at some of the recent matches. They lost to Lyon 4-1. They drew to Montpellier. They lost to Brest. Obviously a loss to Rennes isn't bad, but, beating Nantes 2-1, obviously that's good. Beating Nice 3-2, that's solid. They started the season well, but then, man, some very poor losses, especially that loss to Brest. That's really, really poor loss. And in that game, they had 21 shots, but only 2 of those were on target. So there's just something not going well for Monaco there. And that new manager, I forgot his name, but I remember I was talking about him when I was doing the preview, but it does not look good for him so far early on in the season. They're number 12. Number 13, we have Saint Etienne. They have 3 wins, 4 losses, 1 draw. They have scored 9 goals, not good at all in their first 8 matches, and they have allowed 12. They're recently, they have not looked good at all. They have dropped 4 straight matches to Metz, Nice, Lens, and Rennes. Even though you got, Rennes and Nice are 2 strong clubs, and Metz has looked pretty solid to start the season. But and Lens as well. But at the same time, you gotta do better than score just 1 goal in 4 matches. That's just terrible. And Saint Etienne started the season off well, with a win against Lorient, even though that's expected. But they also got a win against Strasbourg, a win against Marseille, and a shutout win at that. That was 3 straight shutouts to start the season. But then it's fallen off since then, big time. They need to do better than that, and that is a terrible start to their season. A great start, but terrible follow up. Honestly. Next we have Brest, who has won 3 games and lost 5. They have one of the worst defenses in the league with 18 goals allowed. And 3-0 loss to Strasbourg, 3-1 loss to Nantes. They did have that win against Monaco, but they lost 3-2 to Angers before that. They did beat Lorient, but that's expected. But then a 4-0 loss to Nimes to start the season. It's just, you got to expect more, and especially those last 2 games against Nantes and Strasbourg. Those are 2 big-time missed opportunities for Brest to pick up points there, and they're close to that relegation spot. They're only 3 points away from that relegation zone. Now Nantes, 2 wins, 2 draws, 3 losses. They've scored 9 goals, allowed 10. So they have the best goal differential amongst these worst teams in the league, and they have looked okay. As of late, they beat Brest, but they lost 2-1 to Angers, 2-1 to Nantes. They did get a 2-2 draw against Saint Etienne, but after starting the season off with a few points against Bordeaux, a point against Bordeaux and 3 points against Nimes, they lost against Monaco, they lost against Lille. And lost against Nice and Angers. It's just been kind of tough for Nantes to find any sort of consistency. Next, we have Nimes at 16, 2 wins. They do, however, I do have to say about Nantes, they do have a game in hand. So, of course, they win that game. They're just outside the top 10. So, They just need to take advantage of that next game against who do they take on? Ooh, never mind. They take on PSG next, and that's probably going to be a loss, but we'll see. So now Nimes. Lately, they have not looked good. They lost against Bordeaux, but then they got a 4-0 loss against PSG. They did defeat Montpellier. They did get 2 straight draws against Lens and Lyon. Those are some solid performances there. But then they did also start the season off with a dominant victory over Brest. So the fact that they're now underneath Brest in the standings just goes to show the way the season has gone on for them so far. They've only scored 9 goals. They've allowed 13. They just can't find any sort of consistency. Lorient, they've got 2 wins, a draw, and 5 losses. And they did recently lose to Marseille and Rennes and Metz. But before that, they got a draw against Lyon. They did have that loss against Brest. They did recently beat Reims, who doesn't seem to be able to do anything right so far. But it's just a lot of inconsistency for Lorient. Just not being able to find any sort of... I mean, they have scored 12 goals, which is one of the best in the league. I mean, I believe it's like, what is it, 4th best, 5th best? Pretty much like right there. They're around the 5th or 6th best scoring team. Only a -3 in goal differential, which is not terrible. But they just need to do better. And now we look at some of the relegation teams. We got Strasbourg with 2 wins and 6 losses. They've scored 9 goals and allowed 16, which is about 3rd worst in the league. Reims, have started the season off terribly, and unfortunately, they did get into the Europa League, which was nice, but they were not able to make it to the group stage as they lost to Fehervar in penalties in the 3rd qualifying round. So they won't have any more games to really mess with their schedule. So hopefully they start turning things around. But since then, I mean, they lost to PSG. They got a tie against Rennes. They lost to Lorient, even though they had a red card. 2 red cards, actually, late in that game. And but then they did defeat Montpellier 4-0 in their most recent game. So hopefully they start turning things around, and I do expect them to do so. But then you look at Dijon, and Dijon are by far the worst team in Ligue 1. 0 wins, 2 draws, and 6 losses. They've scored only 4 goals this season and have allowed 18. And you look at some of the competition that they've had, their 2 draws were against Rennes, which is solid, and Montpellier, which is good. But then they've lost to Bordeaux. They had a 4-0 loss to PSG. They lost to Brest 2-0. They lost to Lyon, Strasbourg, Angers, and Lens. No, that was a friendly. But yeah, you look at those games, and it's just has not looked good for Dijon. They have not found any sort of consistency, and just have not been able to score goals at all. 4 goals in 8 matches, by far the worst in the league, and the worst defense. They have a -14 goal differential, while no one else has any goal differential in the minus double digits. So that should tell you everything about Dijon, and they look like they're going to be in that relegation battle for most of this season. So that's going to wrap it up for this segment. Make sure you guys stick around, because when I come back, I'm going to be finishing my all-time top 10 series with the best strikers of all time.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Welcome back, everyone. If you missed the last segment, I went over all the standings in Ligue 1 and just my early impressions on each team so far this season. And now we're going to be talking about my favorite segment, the top 10 strikers of all time. We got the best of the best goal scorers on this list. I'm sure you guys know some of the guys that we're going to have on this list, but I feel like there's a couple that you probably never heard of, or maybe at least one that you've never heard of. So let's get right into it with number 10. I could not leave this man off this list. We got Salatan Ibrahimovic, one of the wildest players of all time and the player that got me into soccer. So you know there might be a little bit of bias here, but who cares? This is my list, and I put this man at number 10. I mean, wherever he went, he wins, and he's still doing it late in his 30s, and he's unlike anyone in the history of the sport. He's used his black belt in karate, seamlessly in this sport. I mean, the kind of goals this man has put together, I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, you go through his highlights and just time and time again, he proves that he is one of the most skillful players ever. And at the kind of height that he's at, you don't expect him to have the agility or even skills with the ball that he does. But man, I mean, he can do whatever. Elasticos, he fakes with the ball, like the fake shots. How about that goal? I mean, obviously he has a ridiculous amount of classic goals throughout his career. Obviously, the one that pops up to everyone is that goal he got when he was with Sweden against England, where Joe Hart headed it away, thinking that he had enough time to get back to his goal, but then Zlatan just didn't even think twice. Bicycle kick from like 45 yards out and just gets it into the goal. Just ridiculous. For him to even have the mindset to go for that type of goal. That's what makes Zlatan as good as he is. And you go through some of these accomplishments that he's got. 2 Dutch league titles with Ajax. He won 5 Cska titles with 3 separate teams. 3 with Inter, 1 with Juve, and 1 with AC Milan. He won the La Liga title with Barcelona. 4 Ligue 1 titles with PSG. He won the Europa League. The closest he finished in the Ballon d'Or was 4th in 2013. He was the Serie A top scorer twice, the Ligue 1 top scorer 3 times, and was the Gold Bollen winner, which is the male Swedish footballer of the year, 11 times, which is a record, of course. And then you look at some of the records he's got. These are some pretty interesting records. He's the only player to score in the Champions League for 6 teams. He's the only player to play in the Champions League for 7 teams, and he's also the only player to score on his Premier League, Serie A, La Liga, Ligue 1, and Champions League debut. Only player to do that. One of just 2 players to have scored in 4 decades. He is the all-time top goal scorer for Sweden, of course, the greatest Sweden player ever, and he is 14th top goal scorer of all time. Legendary career for Salatan Ibrahimovic, and it continues to write itself. Next, at number 9, I guarantee you have never heard of this man, Joseph Bican. Statistically, the most clinical goal scorer of all time. Bican played back in the 30s and 40s, so it is hard to get an exact number of goals that he scored throughout his career. On some sites, I saw that he scored about 800 goals in a little over 500 matches. But there are other statistical sites that has his goal scoring feats at over 1,400 goals in about 900 matches over his 27-year playing career. Now, of course, I don't have to tell you that he was incredibly ruthless in front of goal, but the other thing that made him stand out was above the rest was his speed. He can run a 100 meters in 10.8 seconds. That is ridiculous. And he was part of the Austria national team that was named the Wonder Team, but they were unable to realize their World Cup dreams, losing to the eventual winners, Italy, in 1934, and they would never reach that feat again. He would eventually apply for a Czech citizenship and play for their national team and for Slavia Prague for most of his career. And people might say it was easier to score back in the day. However, Biscan will certainly disagree, as this is the quote that he said back in the day. The opportunities were the same even 100 years ago, and they will be the same in 100 years. If I had 5 chances, I scored 5. If I had 7, I scored 7. That's a legend for you. He's gotten 12 domestic league top scores, which is a record. He's got 5 domestic league titles with Sparta Prague, and he was the top scorer in Europe for 5 consecutive campaigns from 1939 to 1944. Legendary career for Joseph Buchanan. I just could not leave him off this list. Next, at number 8, we have Ferenc Puskas, the Hungarian legend. Puskas is obviously considered one of the greatest of all time, but he's also considered the first superstar the sport has ever seen. He was a prolific scorer for club and country, as he scored 84 goals in 85 international matches and 514 goals in 529 matches in the Hungarian and Spanish leagues. I mean, when this guy went out there, you were expecting goals. And I'm pretty sure I don't have to tell you, but that last name probably seems familiar, and this probably just seems dumb to even mention. But of course, he led the domestic league in scoring 8 separate times, and obviously we should all know his goal-scoring heroics would be honored with the Puskas Award, which is given to the greatest goal every single season. You know, there is a reason that has been done. The guy is an absolute legend, an absolute dynamite goal scorer. And you go through some of these accomplishments. He's won 10 domestic league titles, 5 Hungarian league titles, and 5 La Ligas, 3 Champions League wins. He was the top scorer in La Liga 4 times, the top scorer in the Champions League 2 times. In the 1954 World Cup, he was the runner-up, and he got the Golden Ball and was on the All-Star team. He made the Ballon d'Or second place in 1960, and he was a 4-time World Soccer World 11. Illustrious career for Puskas, and one of the greatest strikers of all time. Next, we got Marco van Basten, from the Netherlands. Considered one of the most complete strikers and players in the history of sports, he combined his incredible goal-scoring abilities with beautiful technical skills as well. His height and strength allowed him to excel in the air, but it was his agility and touch with the ball that really separated him from the pack. He could score goals in about any way you asked of him, and he played he put his body out on the line for his team, making diving headers on a regular basis. That is why they gave him the name the Flying Dutchman. Though he was mainly known for his incredible goal-scoring abilities, he also had excellent vision and passing skills that made him a joy to play with. The one thing that just sucks about Van Basten, which I didn't know until I started researching him, was the fact that he had to end his career early due to injuries. I mean, that just hurts. And you look at some of the accomplishments he had before he retired at the age of 28, and you can consider he could have easily been, way higher on this list, probably even top 3. He won 3 Ballon d'Ors. He got 3 Dutch league titles with Ajax, 3 Serie A titles with AC Milan. He won the Euros in 1988 with the Netherlands. He won 4 Dutch league. He was the top scorer in the Dutch league 4 separate times. He was the top scorer in Serie A twice. He won the European Golden Boot and was the FIFA World Player of the Year once. I mean, just an absolutely huge career from Van Basten, and one of the biggest what ifs of all time. Next at number 6, we got Eusebio. Eusebio is one of the greatest strikers and Portuguese players of all time. He is also considered Benfica's greatest player ever. He scored 733 goals in 745 matches, which includes 41 goals in 64 matches for Portugal. And he was known for his speed, technique, athleticism, and that right-footed shot that would go on to be one of the most feared shots ever. I mean, he could do pretty much anything with that. He won the Ballon d'Or in 1965. He won 11 Primera Liga titles with Benfica, including 1 Champions League. He won 5 Taça de Portugal. He won 9 Taça de Honra de Lisboa. He got 3rd place in the World Cup in 1966. He won the first ever European Golden Boot, and then another one, so 2 total in his career. And he's one of the greatest Champions League scorers ever. being the top scorer in the Champions League 3 separate times. And in that World Cup in 1966, he won the Golden Boot, the Bronze Ball, and he was named to the All-Star team. Not to mention, he also has the FIFA Order of Merit, which is one of the highest honors in FIFA history. So Eusebio, one of the greatest strikers of all time, comes in at number 6. Next, at number 5, we have Gerd Müller. Müller was a pure scorer through and through. He didn't wow you with his athleticism and just didn't look like what a great footballer normally looked like. Long, athletic. But what he did have was an uncanny ability to score goals. He was excellent in the air and had great acceleration. And because he had short legs, he had great balance and can turn quickly with the ball, which gave him those opportunities to score in pretty much any way, that he needed. He was known for scoring in unlikely situations, and he was deceptively quick and agile, and would always get to the ball first. You just couldn't allow Müller to get a chance in the box, because no matter how awkward it looked, he was going to capitalize. You go over some of these accomplishments. He won a Ballon d'Or. He won 4 Bundesliga titles with Bayern, including 3 Champions Leagues. He won 4 DFB Pokals. He was a World Cup winner in 1974, a Euro winner in 1972. He was the Germany Footballer of the Year twice. And in the 1970 FIFA World Cup, he was the top scorer. He won the Bronze Ball and was named to the All-Star team. He was the Bundesliga top scorer 7 times. He won the European Golden Shoe twice. He was the Champions League top scorer 4 separate times. Just an absolutely ridiculous career for Gerd Müller, and he also got the FIFA Order of Merit. Just a ridiculous career from him, and certainly deserves to be number 5 on this list. Number 4, we have Romario, the Brazilian. Johan Cruyff, who was Romario's coach in Barcelona, defined him as a genius of the goal area and the greatest player he ever coached. Even the Brazilian great Ronaldo said he was extremely decisive in the box and was an amazing finisher who always took advantage of his opportunities in the penalty area. He was an extremely smart player. He was an extremely smart player who would put himself in the right positions to score and poach goals on a regular basis. Romario was also extremely quick and had great creativity and vision that would allow him to link up with teammates to get him easier goal-scoring opportunities. Now, he also won 3 Dutch league titles. He got the La Liga title as well. He won the FIFA World Cup in 1994, 2 Copa Americas, a Confederations Cup as well with Brazil. So he had a lot of international success. He also was on the Dutch League top scorer 3 times. He was the Champions League top scorer twice. In the 1994 World Cup, when they won, he won the Golden Ball, the Bronze Boot, and All-Star, and made it to the All-Star team. And he was the FIFA World Player of the Year that year as well. Just an absolutely illustrious career from Romario, and the number 4 player of all time. Next, number 3, we have Alfredo Di Stefano. Di Stefano had all the qualities you would want from your striker. He was strong, quick, and skillful. He had great stamina, creativity, and vision. Plus, his versatility was amongst the best all time, as he can play almost anywhere on the pitch. He is also one of the clutchest players of all time, as he scored in each of the 5 Champions League finals he played in for Real Madrid and was instrumental in each of those Champions League wins. The biggest reason he isn't considered amongst the greats like Pelé and Maradona is because of his international career left a lot to be desired. He played for Argentina, Colombia, and Spain, but he never reached a World Cup final. But you go through some of these accomplishments, and there's no question he is the 3rd best striker of all time. He is a 2-time Ballon d'Or winner, an 8-time La Liga title winner. He won the Champions League 5 times. He won the Primera Division titles twice, 3 Colombian championships, the Copa America once, He was the top scorer in La Liga 5 times. He was the top scorer in the Champions League twice. And he made it to 5 World Soccer World 11s and received the FIFA Order of Merit. Just a ridiculous career from Alfredo Di Stefano, and certainly deserves to be considered the 3rd best striker of all time. And now next, at number 2, certainly someone you should know, one of the most ridiculous players of all time, Ronaldo. Ronaldo performed absolute magic with the ball throughout his career and was an inspiration to so many kids of my generation. I've never seen a number 9 have the skills and dribbling abilities that Ronaldo had. I mean, just the way he would, the combination of pace, strength, agility, and balance to just get by any defense on his own. And of course, the finishing ability to end those solo runs with goals was, just incredible. I mean, obviously the only person I can think of that was close to that was Ronaldo. But even Ronaldo it felt like he did it differently. And I meant Cristiano Ronaldo, of course. Like those are the two guys that's the guy I can kind of compare Ronaldo with. But I mean, it's just ridiculous. Now, while most of his highlights are filled with, him being more of an individual creator and not relying on his teammates very much, he still had excellent vision and, would link up with his teammates very well. Many former players said Ronaldo would waste no time once he got the ball at his feet and would make his way down the pitch in no time. Literally, as he got the ball, that's all he was thinking about was just attack. And these combinations of the speed, skills, and finishing had current and former players saying he is the greatest striker to ever play the game. No question, and that is why he's number 2. And you look at some of these accomplishments. I mean, he won the Ballon d'Or twice. He won the FIFA World Cup twice and was the runner-up once in 1998. He won 2 Copa Americas as well, and a Confederations Cup. So, I mean, the success with Brazil was incredible. He won a La Liga title with Real Madrid and a UEFA Cup Winners' Cup with Barcelona. And he won the Europa League with Inter Milan. So, obviously, one of those few players that played for both Real Madrid and Barcelona. And it just had an absolutely incredible career. Ronaldo, the 2nd best striker of all time. Next, we have Pelé. Of course, could there be anybody else than Pelé at number 1? One of the greatest goal scorer ever. I mean, statistically, he is considered the ultimate goal scorer of all goal scorers. And he is considered the greatest player of all time, and for good reason. I mean, Pelé, like I said, the greatest scorer of all time, and he made it look easy. I mean, back in the day, he was the guy that, everybody was kind of trying to shape their game to. I mean, the speed, the dribbling abilities, and then, of course, the finishing, just everything that he put together. Of course, I didn't get to see him play. I obviously wasn't even alive then, but I looked at some of his highlights, and it's just incredible the way he was able to, to just manipulate the defense to kind of be where and just do whatever he wanted. He's one of the only players to actually win 3 World Cups. He won 6 Campeonato Brasileiro Serie A titles. He won 2 Copa Libertadores. He won 10 Campeonato Paulista titles. He was the Campeonato Paulista top scorer 11 times. He was the Campeonato Brasileiro Serie A top scorer 3 times. Of course, in the 1958 World Cup, he won the silver ball. And in the 1970 World Cup, he won the golden ball. And of course, he was the FIFA Player of the Century. I mean, come on. FIFA Player of the Century. Obviously, that was shared with Maradona, but still, that's why they're considered 2 of the greatest of all time, or the 2 greatest of all time. And of course, the FIFA Order of Merit as well. And then you look at some of the records that he has. He is the all-time leading goal scorer for the Brazil national team with 77 goals. He has a world record number of hat-tricks with 92. The most career goals with 1,283 goals in 1,363 games. And aside from that, he also has an assist record, the most assists provided in the FIFA World Cup history with 10, and the most assists provided in a single FIFA World Cup with 7 in 1970. He's also the youngest player to play, score a hat trick, and win a World Cup at 17 years old in 249 days. He's also scored the most goals in a calendar year with 127. I mean, if this doesn't tell you that he is the greatest scorer and honestly the greatest player of all time, I don't know what does. I mean, I absolutely need to put him up there with Pelé, Maradona. I'm obviously talking about Pelé, but with Maradona, Ronaldo, Cristiano Ronaldo, I'm talking about, and Messi. Those four guys, you can go with either one. You can't go wrong, but Pelé certainly has one of the biggest cases with all these records and just, the style of play, man. So that's going to wrap it up for today's episode. I hope you guys enjoyed, the top 10 list and just everything I talked about today. But as always, thank you for listening to the GSMC Soccer Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I would like to ask that you please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review. That really helps us. Also, if you can please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, I would really appreciate it. Thank you and have a great night.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.